With the abject misery and suffering that the massive coronavirus surge has brought on India has also come controversy over whether the Indian government contributed to the crisis, not just by playing down the risks before this second wave, but also through attempts at censorship in recent days, most obviously in getting Twitter to block many posts in India relating to the pandemic. Among those the Indian government got blocked were tweets by opposition politicians talking about Prime Minister Modi's mismanagement of the pandemic, or just highlighting the scale of the crisis and strain on the healthcare system. Even pictures posted by a photojournalist of the funeral pyres burning was blocked, as were tweets critical of large religious gatherings by the UK-based lawyer and academic Mirza Sahib Beg.
It is surprising that these tweets were removed, but it is not the first time that such action has been taken by the government. In the past also, we have seen how information that is critical of the government or that exposes actions of the government that are excessive in Kashmir or in other places and other issues that the Indian government is engaged in, they have taken, the first step that they take is to cut off communications, to delete information.
So critics say this is indicative of the way that India, which is now 142 out of 180 in the World Press Freedom Index, deals with criticism. Prime Minister Modi's 2014 communications director says it's not censorship.
I think we need to differentiate between the issue of censorship and the legitimate concerns of governments, not only in India, but around the world, to the issue of fake news that is being propagated.
But so one of the tweets that was removed was just a picture of funeral pyres burning.
There may be some context behind this. It's possible that there are concerns at a local level for the law and order situation of that particular area or district. I think you are getting a true picture. The fact that the BBC is very, very actively reporting all sorts of aspects of the pandemic in India almost on a rolling basis, there will be concerns about whether it's fair or not, or whether it's balanced or not. But you get the same arguments here in the UK and the same concerns in other parts.
Do you have issues with the reporting of India by the BBC?
I do, actually. I do. And I often feel concerned that there isn't a balanced narrative around the reporting, that it tends to be focused upon the negative.
He did acknowledge it's been hard to put a positive spin on what's happening in the country today. But a highly defensive posture by the Indian government towards news seen as negative is something critics have become used to.
Anytime people try to criticize the government, the assumption that is being used, and it is being used as a weapon against them, is that you are criticizing the nation. You are enemies of the nation if you criticize the government. And what needs to be understood is that governments will come and go, but the loss of lives, the suffering that is going on right now, this is irreparable. The people who have lost their lives do not need to lose their lives. This is not something which cannot be addressed. It is the failure, it is the negligence of the government that is causing this to happen. And we have a right to criticize the government.
Many Indian health experts have been saying the vastly underestimated official figures of infections and deaths are ongoing attempts to play down the scale of the crisis. But it is getting harder to control this tragic narrative.
Ali Makbul with that report. Well, earlier I asked Gopal Agarwal, the national spokesman for the BJP, the governing party, why the government had taken so long to admit to the crisis.
No, the government has not turned a blind eye. The first wave was very well controlled by the governments, state, center and other institutions like ICMR, medical, pharma companies, medical fraternities, frontline workers. And we were expecting second wave, but the modeling, etc., or the economist or the medical professional, nobody expected that the second wave will be so severe and it will be so widespread and so intense.
You have failed to implement a lockdown even now, with well over 300,000 new cases a day. You've had a catastrophic shortage of oxygen, a black market for medicines, people dying on the streets outside hospitals, doctors describing how they're unable to cope, they don't have supplies and they don't have space, and you haven't even stopped electoral campaigning or religious gatherings that are bringing more people together.
There is certain narration which is influencing which is being influenced by the social media and certain Western press also, Australia and other, which are very hostile to Indian dispensation. They are creating this kind of narration. I would just like to put in fact, when the elections were declared in India, that time the rate of new COVID patient had fallen down to 11,000. And when
you can stop those at any point. You can stop your electioneering at any point. That whilst countries like the UK and the US and many around the world have been scrabbling to help India in a time of crisis, your Prime Minister Modi was at a political rally. His Home Minister Amit Shah was alongside him on the streets at a political rally. Why weren't they focusing on the crisis and people dying at home?
There are 5 state elections which were going on. The 4 states election were completed by 6th of April. By 6th of April, the number of cases was there only 13,000 per day. So that is not the situation. Later on, when suddenly there was a spurt from the second wave, and the Bharatiya Janata Party in itself had declared that we will not hold public rallies, and Prime Minister cancelled his rallies. And that point of time, after that, we have not been holding public rallies.
And when people pointed out what was going wrong, when, for example, Molloy Ghatak an MP wrote on Twitter, India will never forgive the PM for underplaying the corona situation in the country and letting so many people die due to mismanagement, you shut down social media tweets like that. When you have a Reuters journalist, Danish Siddiqui, who said, never imagined I'd be a witness to these scenes in my hometown. Coronavirus continues to wreak havoc in New Delhi, India's national capital. You shut down those posts. You don't let people see them. Why are you spending your time shutting down social media posts instead of dealing with the crisis?
Your information is completely incorrect. One thing I tell you, that there were many instances of which have been pointed out by the government, where same words, same sentences and same multiple sentences which were completely copied and being transmitted and tweeted from different handles, which were originating not from our country but were originating from outside the Indian border.
You're a democracy. You're the biggest democracy in the world. You can handle criticism, can't you?
No, this is not the right perspective that you are taking. Every country, Twitter, etc., have to comply, and all social platforms have to comply with the rules and regulation of the content by the country. When our government pointed out that these Twitter handles or these toolkit instruments, which are not conducive to the current national interest and which are completely based on fake news and which are based with an agenda, those and which the Twitter and other social media agreed.
Well, it's an agenda.
Currently mentioned it that we have received this and we have an independent judiciary. If somebody has any objection to central government or any government, they can go to the court and that will see whether...
Let me ask you something very simple. Is it unpatriotic to criticise the Indian government? For people in your country to criticise the Indian government and what Prime Minister Modi is doing, is it unpatriotic if they write these things on Twitter? And I'm quoting directly from the posts that have been taken down.
If you make a concerted effort and take a fake news and false narration and build that and create panic out of the crisis, every government has the right to control the panic.
Multiple people are dying.
These are fake news and false news. You want to say that we should allow this? You don't see any criticism of Indian government and Modi government in the social media. If you are completely blind to that, then I cannot help you. But criticizing the state government, various institutions, everything is open.
Well, let's look at some of the criticism that has made it through then. One newspaper editor we just spoke to from the Caravan magazine has accused your government of trying to massage the figures of the death rate, so the world didn't know how badly India was coping. We also know of a crematorium in Madhya Pradesh where 94 bodies were cremated in one day and government data reported just 3.
Everything will be investigated if there are people, the investigation authorities, their judiciary is scrutinizing. There are other FIRs being lodged. All these issues are taken care of. But this kind of narration building is not correct. If you can't find any criticism of the government in Indian media, then I think you are completely keeping your eyes closed.
I've just read you the criticism, but Gopal Agarwal, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.